What if I told you that a Caribbean nation smaller than Delaware is about to unleash $50 billion worth of transformation that could reshape the entire region's economic landscape? The answer might surprise you. Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, that twin island nation famous for carnival and steel pan drums is about to become something far more significant. An economic powerhouse that could rival Singapore's transformation story. But here's what makes this even more intriguing. Nobody's talking about it. While the world obsesses over Dubai's latest skyscraper or Singapore's newest innovation hub, something extraordinary is unfolding in the southern Caribbean. Something that involves geopolitical chess moves with Venezuela, technology leaps that are bypassing entire generations of infrastructure, and energy deals that have caught the attention of both Washington and Beijing. This isn't just another development story. This is about a nation that's been sitting on a gold mine and has finally decided to play its cards. For over a century, Trinidad and Tobago rode the waves of oil and gas wealth. The country became the richest per capita nation in the Caribbean, built on energy exports. But wealth built on a single foundation is fragile wealth. By the early 2000s, the cracks started showing. Reserves were depleting. The global energy market was shifting. Younger generations were leaving for opportunities abroad. The carnival music still played every February, but behind the celebrations, economists were whispering a troubling question. What happens when the oil runs out? That question haunted policymakers for 2 decades. But 2025 is different. Instead of waiting for decline, Trinidad and Tobago made a choice. Reinvent or fade into irrelevance. What followed was not just a plan, but a complete reimagining of what this nation could become. 10 mega projects, $50 billion in investments, a timeline that seems impossibly ambitious, and a vision that, if successful, could make Trinidad and Tobago the economic bridge between North and South America, the technology hub of the Caribbean, and proof that small nations can think big and win. Project 1. The Port of Spain Metamorphosis. Imagine landing at Payarco International Airport and driving toward the capital. For decades, that drive ended at a waterfront stuck in time. Colonial-era buildings, underutilized port facilities. Not anymore. The Port of Spain waterfront is undergoing what urban planners are calling one of the most aggressive redevelopment projects in Caribbean history. This isn't about fresh paint on old buildings. This is about creating a financial district that can compete globally. Glass towers rising where warehouses once stood. International banks opening regional headquarters. A ferry terminal designed to handle thousands of daily commuters. Luxury hotels catering to business travelers who previously flew straight to Miami or Panama. And beneath it all, a digital infrastructure backbone that makes the entire district a smart zone. The goal isn't subtle. Trinidad wants to become the financial gateway to South America for companies that find Sao Paulo too chaotic and Bogotá too risky. But here's the fascinating part. The government isn't doing this alone. Chinese construction firms, American architectural studios, European financial institutions. They're all investing because they see what many haven't yet recognized. Geography matters. Trinidad sits just 7 miles from Venezuela's coast, 4 hours to New York, 5 to Mexico City, 6 to Buenos Aires. In an era where nearshoring is replacing globalization, Trinidad's location is suddenly incredibly valuable. Project 2. The energy paradox. How do you convince a nation that built its wealth on fossil fuels to embrace renewable energy? The answer Trinidad found is brilliantly pragmatic. You don't abandon oil and gas. You add to it. The country is simultaneously expanding its fossil fuel infrastructure while becoming the Caribbean's largest investor in renewable energy. It sounds contradictory until you understand the strategy. By 2025, Trinidad is deploying solar farms across previously unused land. These aren't small experimental projects. We're talking installations capable of generating hundreds of megawatts. Wind farms are being constructed on the northeastern coast where trade winds blow consistently. But the real game changer is green hydrogen. Trinidad is investing heavily in hydrogen production facilities that use renewable energy to split water molecules. Why does this matter? Because green hydrogen is being called the fuel of the future, powering everything from ships to steel plants without carbon emissions. Here's the strategic genius. Trinidad uses its existing energy expertise and infrastructure to become a leader in the new energy economy, while continuing to profit from natural gas exports. The country is placing bets on both sides of the energy transition. While other nations argue about whether to go green or protect fossil fuel jobs, Trinidad is saying yes to both and building the infrastructure to make it work. Project 3, the mobility revolution. Let's talk about something that frustrates every Trinidadian: traffic. For years, the daily commute has been a grinding test of patience. 2-lane roads handling 4-lane traffic. Bottlenecks that turn 15-minute drives into hour-long ordeals. The economic cost of this congestion is staggering. Billions in lost productivity. Increased shipping costs. Something had to give. Enter the Diego Martin Highway expansion and the broader national infrastructure overhaul. This isn't just road widening. It's a complete rethinking of how people and goods move across Trinidad. New highways with dedicated lanes for public transport and future autonomous vehicles. Bridges bypassing congested urban centers entirely. A rapid transit system connecting Port of Spain with the industrial heartland in Point Lisas and growing southern communities. But infrastructure is more than roads. Water systems being upgraded to handle climate change-induced droughts. Telecommunications cables buried underground to survive hurricane seasons. Drainage systems expanded because flooding has become an annual nightmare. Trinidad is building the physical framework for a 21st century economy. Because you cannot have smart cities, efficient logistics, or thriving tourism on broken infrastructure. Project 4. The Industrial Evolution Point Lisas. If you've never heard of it, you're not alone. But in energy circles, this industrial estate on Trinidad's western coast is legendary. Home to some of the largest petrochemical facilities in the Western Hemisphere. Ammonia plants, methanol producers, liquefied natural gas terminals. For decades, Point Lisas has been Trinidad's economic engine. But facilities built in the 1980s don't meet 2025 efficiency standards. Billions are being poured into modernizing these plants. New LNG trains that can process gas more efficiently. Updated methanol facilities using cutting-edge catalytic technology. Expanded storage terminals to handle increased export volumes. But Trinidad isn't just upgrading existing industries. It's adding new ones. Advanced manufacturing facilities producing everything from solar panels to electric vehicle components. The country is leveraging its cheap energy and strategic location to become a manufacturing hub for products destined for both North and South American markets. By diversifying Point Lisas into advanced manufacturing and clean tech production, the country is hedging against the future decline of fossil fuel demand. If natural gas exports slow, the facilities, workers, and export infrastructure can pivot to different products. It's economic evolution in real time. Project 5. Paradise rebranded. When you think Caribbean tourism, what islands come to mind? Probably Barbados, Jamaica, the Bahamas. Trinidad and Tobago rarely makes that list. And that's exactly what the government is trying to change. Not because tourism will replace energy as the economic backbone, but because diversification means multiple revenue streams. And tourism is money that doesn't run out like oil reserves. The strategy is two-pronged. Trinidad is being positioned as a cultural and business tourism destination. Conferences, corporate retreats, cultural festivals beyond just carnival. Eco-tourism in northern rainforests where rare birds attract nature enthusiasts. Then there's Tobago, the smaller sister island with beaches that rival anything in the Eastern Caribbean. International hotel chains are breaking ground on luxury properties. The cruise terminal is being expanded to accommodate the newest generation of mega ships, but the Caribbean tourism market is brutally competitive. Islands like Antigua and St. Lucia have decades of brand recognition, so Trinidad and Tobago is gambling on authenticity and uniqueness. Immersive cultural experiences. Food tourism showcasing incredible fusion cuisine, blending Indian, African, Chinese, and Caribbean influences. Music tourism highlighting the birthplace of steel pan and calypso. The bet is that travelers are tired of generic beach resorts and want something real. Before we continue, I need to ask you something. If you're finding this deep dive into Trinidad and Tobago's transformation fascinating, hit that subscribe button right now. We're on a mission to reach 10,000 subscribers, and your support helps us create more content like this. Drop a comment below. Have you been to Trinidad and Tobago? Do you think these projects will succeed? Your engagement helps this channel grow. Now, back to the story, because we're about to enter territory that sounds like science fiction. Project 6. The Caribbean Smart City Experiment. Forget what you think you know about Caribbean infrastructure. What's being built in Port of Spain and San Fernando right now is leapfrog technology. Trinidad is skipping over entire generations of urban development and jumping straight to smart city systems that most developed nations are still only testing. How is this possible? Because sometimes starting from behind is an advantage. You're not locked into legacy systems. Smart traffic management systems are being installed across major urban centers. These aren't just timed lights. These are AI-powered networks that analyze real-time traffic flow and adjust intersections dynamically. The system detects accidents, reroutes emergency vehicles, and predicts traffic patterns based on events and weather. Public safety is being upgraded with integrated surveillance networks using facial recognition and predictive policing algorithms. Government services are going digital in revolutionary ways. Business registration that once took weeks can now be done online in hours. Property tax payments, police reports, health records, all moving to integrated digital platforms. And underpinning everything is the nationwide 5G rollout. Trinidad is one of the first Caribbean nations to deploy 5G broadly. Why does this matter? Because 5G isn't just faster internet. It's the foundation for Internet of Things devices, telemedicine platforms, and real-time data systems that make smart cities actually work. If Trinidad pulls this off, it doesn't just improve quality of life for residents. It becomes a proof of concept for the entire Caribbean region, and that attracts investment, talent, and international attention. Project 7. The geopolitical masterstroke, and now we arrive at the project that changes everything. The Dragon gas field. To understand why this matters, you need to understand Trinidad's energy dilemma. The country's economy runs on natural gas, power generation, industrial production, LNG exports. Everything depends on gas. But Trinidad's own offshore reserves have been declining for years. Production peaked in the early 2000s and has been dropping ever since. Without new sources, the country faced a terrifying future. Declining revenues, industrial shutdowns, economic contraction. Now here's where geography becomes destiny. Just off Trinidad's northwest coast in Venezuelan waters sits the Dragon gas field. Massive reserves. Billions of cubic feet of natural gas. Enough to power Trinidad's economy for decades. But there's a problem. Venezuela, a country in economic collapse, under international sanctions, politically isolated, unable to develop its own resources. For years, that gas sat untouched. Trillions of dollars of wealth locked beneath the ocean floor because of politics, until Trinidad made a move that's either brilliant or reckless. In a deal that required navigating American sanctions, international law, and Venezuelan politics, Trinidad secured rights to develop the Dragon field. The natural gas will be piped directly into Trinidad's territory, processed in Trinidadian facilities, and exported under Trinidad's name. Venezuela gets royalties and a lifeline of revenue. Trinidad gets the gas it desperately needs. American and European companies get continued access to LNG exports from a politically stable source. On paper, everybody wins. But this deal put Trinidad in a delicate position. The United States granted a sanctions waiver because it needs Trinidad's LNG exports, especially as Europe seeks alternatives to Russian gas. But that waiver comes with conditions and could be revoked if political winds shift. Venezuela sees this as economic salvation, but also as Trinidad profiting from Venezuelan resources. Opposition politicians in Trinidad question whether the country is tying itself too closely to an unstable neighbor. But here's the reality. Without Dragon, Trinidad's economic future was bleak. With Dragon, the country just secured energy independence for the next 30 years and locked in billions in annual revenue. This isn't just a gas project. It's a geopolitical chess move that repositioned a small island nation as a key player in hemispheric energy security. High risk, high reward. Absolutely fascinating. Project 8, building communities, not just houses. Trinidad and Tobago has a housing crisis that's been building for decades. Young families priced out of homeownership. Urban overcrowding creating slums. A growing gap between the wealthy and gated communities and everyone else struggling with rising costs. If your workforce can't afford decent housing near where they work, your entire economy suffers. The National Housing Master Plan is addressing this with scale and ambition. Thousands of new residential units under construction across the country. But these aren't cramped apartments that became symbols of poverty. These are planned communities with modern amenities, green spaces, playgrounds, community centers, mixed-income neighborhoods where teachers, nurses, and young professionals can afford quality housing. Urban planning is being taken seriously. New developments near public transport links so residents aren't car-dependent. Commercial spaces integrated so neighborhoods have grocery stores and services within walking distance. Digital infrastructure built in from the start. Climate resilience with buildings designed to withstand hurricanes. Solar panels reducing energy costs. This project recognizes something important. Economic transformation means nothing if ordinary citizens don't benefit. You can build all the industrial parks and financial districts you want, but if teachers and nurses can't afford decent lives, your society fractures. Stable communities create stable workforces, and stable workforces attract investment. Project 9. Investing in mines, not just infrastructure. Buildings and roads don't create prosperity. People do. Trinidad could build every infrastructure project on this list and still fail without the human capital to sustain growth. That's why Project 9 might be the most important of all. The education and innovation campus of the future. The concept is ambitious. A new university campus combined with research facilities, technology incubators, and vocational training centers. The academic focus is strategic. Renewable energy engineering, software development and artificial intelligence, biotechnology, financial technology. The skills needed for the economy Trinidad is trying to build, not the economy it had 50 years ago. Research labs are being designed in partnership with international universities and corporations. Technology incubators will provide resources for local entrepreneurs to build startups in artificial intelligence, fintech, and clean energy. Trinidad is trying to become a knowledge hub, a place where ideas are generated, not just where resources are extracted. Brain drain has haunted Caribbean nations for generations. The brightest students leave for universities abroad and never return. Trinidad is trying to reverse that equation. Come study here, build your career here, launch your startup here, stay here. If even a fraction of graduates choose to remain and build businesses, The economic multiplier effects over decades would be enormous. Project 10. The Blue Economy Frontier. Finally, we arrive at a project that's been quietly developing but could have enormous implications. The Maritime and Blue Economy Initiative. Trinidad and Tobago is surrounded by ocean. That's not just geography. It's economic opportunity that's been vastly underutilized. Marine aquaculture facilities are being developed to farm fish, shrimp, and other seafood sustainably. The Caribbean imports most of its seafood despite being surrounded by ocean. Trinidad sees an opportunity to produce locally and potentially export to regional markets. Deep-sea mineral exploration is being studied cautiously. The ocean floor contains valuable minerals needed for batteries and electronics. Offshore wind farms are being planned for waters where wind patterns are strong and consistent. Maritime services are being expanded. Ship repair facilities. Maritime logistics. Positioning Trinidad as a service hub for vessels transiting between the Atlantic and Caribbean. The blue economy represents diversification into a sector Trinidad has barely touched. It's high risk because ocean-based industries require different expertise. But it's also high potential because the ocean economy globally is projected to be worth trillions by mid-century. So here we are, 10 megaprojects, $50 billion in investment. The question everyone should be asking is simple. Will it work? Can a small island nation of 1.4 million people pull off an economic transformation on this scale? The honest answer is nobody knows. The challenges are real and significant. Political instability could derail everything. Trinidad has faced corruption scandals that have slowed development before. Global economic conditions matter enormously. If energy prices collapse or recession hits major markets, investment could dry up. Execution risk is massive. Building this much this fast requires competent project management, skilled labor, and regulatory efficiency. But here's what makes this fascinating. Trinidad has advantages that many developing nations lack. It's already relatively wealthy with GDP per capita higher than most Caribbean neighbors. It has existing industrial infrastructure and expertise. Its geographic location is increasingly valuable. And perhaps most importantly, there's recognition that the status quo leads to decline. If these projects succeed, even partially, Trinidad and Tobago could become a model. Proof that small nations can compete globally. That energy-rich countries can transition beyond fossil fuels. That smart infrastructure investment can leapfrog development stages. If they fail, it becomes a cautionary tale about ambition outpacing capacity. Over the next 12 months, we'll see which projects move from planning to execution, which investments actually materialize, whether the Dragon gas deal delivers as promised or becomes complicated by politics, whether smart city systems work as advertised, whether tourists actually come and housing gets built and students enroll. The timeline is tight. The stakes are enormous. What do you think? Is Trinidad and Tobago about to become the next Singapore, or are these projects too ambitious? Have you visited Trinidad? Would you invest there? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I'm genuinely curious. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, share it with someone who loves economics or Caribbean culture or underdog stories, because that's what this is, an underdog story, and those are always worth following.